Welcome, everybody, to Always Be Looking with Alan Stein and Brianna Rooney, my special guest today. I'll introduce her shortly.
We'll just say welcome, everybody, to Always Be Looking. Today, we are talking with Brianna Rooney about how to make a recruiter your ally. Alan, why is this important?
Yes. So this is a super important topic because a lot of clients ask, oh, are you an executive recruiter? And I say no. And then they ask me to introduce them to an executive recruiter. And I ask why. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what recruiters are, what role they play, how to make them an ally, because they are a key influencer in us getting better jobs quickly, confidently, and with lots more money. And Brianna has so much experience in the recruiting space. I'll introduce her briefly here in terms of her ridiculous background, but Brianna is a serial entrepreneur with a successful exit under her belt. She's a top recruiting voice. Actually, I found you through Eric Hudson, but you're a top recruiting voice and top exec coach voice on LinkedIn. You should definitely follow Brianna if you're not. And she's an influential figure in the world of recruiting. She's taught me a lot of what I've learned so far. And Brianna continues to inspire and empower others through the podcast she hosts, Talent Takeover Unfiltered. I hope to be a guest one day. And her mission has always been to change the way the world views recruiting and make sustainable hiring a standard.
Nice. Who wrote that? That was great. I'm just kidding.
So anything else you'd like to add, Brianna? And then I'll introduce Katie, which I was supposed to do first, and I missed out on that.
Poor Katie. No, I'm super happy to be here. And yes, you have to be on the podcast. I love this topic because I don't think people realize how important it is to have a recruiter in your back pocket at all times, especially as you're always looking, per this episode here. So yeah, let's just jam.
Before we get into it today, real quick housekeeping. Please ask your questions. Alan's going to keep putting it in the chat. If you don't, we love the questions. Stick around for feedback, the ability to give us feedback and win something cool, and also recommend who else you might want to see here. Without further ado, which I feel like I say too much, Brianna, talk to us about rapport building and networking strategy.
And we've rehearsed a lot here, but this really? Is live. But go ahead, Brianna.
Love the live. Okay, so rapport building, networking strategies, I feel like, and I don't want to tangent too terribly much, but the key to getting a job is absolutely is your networking strategies and your skills here. But when it comes to actually a recruiter, so like you should have, in my opinion, I want to be the only recruiter, right, you ever work with, but let's be real, I think you need 3. I don't think you need more than that. I think you need to find the recruiters that are in what you want to do. So for example, if you are like looking for VC-backed startups, which is what I specialize in, well then naturally when you're going through LinkedIn, you're going to put in VC startup recruiter, see what happens. You can put in tech if you're in tech. Just think about like if you are a CEO and you're looking for a recruiter to fill the roles at your company, who would you reach out to? And so definitely start doing that. Have conversations first and foremost. Yeah.
Thank you for waiting for anyone that's still here. So, Brianna, again, talk about rapport building and networking strategies.
I think the overall theme is you always need to be looking, right? So if you always need to be looking, then you have to always be networking. Network, net worth, we hear that all the time. The way you need to do that is you need to find what recruiter is right for you in the sector that you're in, which is a very easy, in my opinion, LinkedIn search. But the key is you got to talk to them. You have to have, in my opinion, 3 great recruiters in your exact network, in what you're trying to do, in the types of companies you're trying to do it with, and start talking to them. And trust me, recruiters love talking to you. It's their job. Like their job is to be like, okay, great. I might place this person maybe next week. I might place them next year. If they're a good recruiter, they're going to know this is like a lifetime network, right? And I see you smiling. Do you have, I think back, I know you're, a founder now, right? But did you have certain recruiters in your back pocket, like you would call whenever you needed something?
Nope.
No.
I love this conversation because I have never found recruiters to be helpful for me landing the job. I have lots of friends that are recruiters, yourself included. I have lots of recruiter friends that do give a shit, but I find that most recruiters are so focused on their KPIs, and we'll talk about this shortly, that some of them are nice and some of them are helpful. But I find often that if it's not helping one of their open roles, it's not that helpful. But that might be my approach. And I might not have done enough due diligence and reach out. I've always tried for the hiring manager route, but I think a two-pronged approach, maybe my mind will be swayed after this conversation.
Hopefully. I mean, I think about some of the people that I haven't even placed, I have met. Like our kids have, played together at the park because we intertwined at like some level, whether or not they were like a hiring manager one time or they were like, hey, can you help my friend? It's like, yeah, let me see who I can help. We're connectors by nature.
Yeah.
So I think that like I get a lot of asks, hey, can you do this? And I will respond, trust me, 80% of the time, right? Because we tend to get a lot of messages, but you have to follow up. And I think that the key in networking in general is one, don't take things personally, because it's like everybody's busy, everybody's getting asked questions, right? So you have to follow up, just like us as recruiters. When we're trying to recruit you, I send out up to 7 messages to someone in order to get them interested. So it's like if I took that personally, I would never have candidates, So that's when a whole relationship starts. And you have to tell the recruiter why you're reaching out initially, like what it is you do. I don't want to guess. What do you need? What do you want? Let's chat. And let's just start a relationship. And I think that is like transparency is the key to building a relationship with a recruiter.
Yeah, I think a direct approach makes sense. I think that transparency. And to be fair, just like you're reaching out to candidates and you're taking a spray approach, you might reach out to like 20 candidates or 100 candidates to get like 7 responses or 10 responses or whatever your response rate is. The same side with a candidate reaching out to a recruiter, they may not get responses from a lot of the recruiters. And some of the recruiters might be more apt, like you are, to be helpful and supportive, and some won't respond. So I think you probably have the same distribution across humans, whether there are people that need jobs or people that are giving people jobs, that some people are more willing to talk and be helpful and supportive, and some people are not.
And I also think it comes back to the time. And so it's like you have to put yourself like in their shoes. So for me, I'm going to say it's charity because it is, but I'm like, all right, I do 3 things of charity every single week. And charity meaning like I'm going to help someone that can't help me whatsoever, right? It's not in my network, it's not in my genius, but I'm going to do 3 things. Or if it's a recruiter that says, hey, I want to do your coaching, I can't afford it this month, will you have like a 30-minute chat with me? So I always like to do 3 free things a week. But not everybody's like that. I'm a business owner. I think that's also why I do those things. I mean, I haven't been an employee since I've been 23 years old. So I don't know, Alan, like when you were like an employee, like, did you do those things because it's like technically you're on someone else's dime, or do you do more free things now?
I would do it. And that's why I entered this business. So when I was at Google, I got 9 people jobs at Google, and I didn't do it. Like, it was nice to get the $4,000 referral bonus, and I only got paid on 6 out of the 9. That's a longer story. But I would always I would always help people out. So I'm one of those people, like, I didn't count it as a freebie for the week, but generally if people would reach out to me, then I would help, I would respond. And if I could help them, I could help them.
Yeah, for sure. I just think about my LinkedIn inbox today, for example, and I have someone who's just like not in my network sending me resume and just like, hey, can you help? And I'm like, again, no context. There's no relationship building, no context. Hey, can I help you? So I definitely think the networking goes back to the key principles is what is networking? It's not take. It's a take, give. And it's like, I think about I love this. When you're walking down the street, how many times you're, hey, how are you? And like, literally no one's even like stopping to hear what you have to say. I tried this one time where I'm like, I'm having a really bad day. And the person's like, what? What did you say? So I think it's kind of like that same thing with networking. It's like we forget like who you're connecting to on the other side is an actual human being, right? And they have a job to do, and they're busy, and they have family, and they have friends, they have, whatever it is. So it's the same kind of principle of like, let's actually be human beings together. Let's personalize something.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And yes, recruiters are human beings too.
Thank you.
Good to remember that. What about different kinds of recruiters? Does that make a difference?
Yeah. So this is my perspective, and I'd love to hear Brianna's perspective. So I've never been a recruiter. I've applied for lots of roles as a recruiter, But there are different sort of recruiters, and most job candidates get this confused. There are internal recruiters, a recruiter that works for a company that gets paid by a company. Usually companies that are hiring mass number of people or large organizations have an internal team. So like Google, Facebook, Salesforce, American Express, companies that are like big companies, like tens of thousands of employees, they have a recruiting team. Then there are external recruiters, and external recruiters are also called headhunters, or also called executive search, or also, yeah, that's probably the most popular name of them. Maybe there's some others. And they work either for themselves, or they work for a small agency, or they work for a large headhunter company like Korn Ferry or Russell Reynolds, or Robert Half is a staffing agency in that space a little bit as well. And external recruiters or headhunters are paid either on contingency based on when that role is filled, they get paid something contingent on that person staying there, usually 90 days. Or you could be retained search, and the company basically retains you and your capabilities as a recruiter to fill the role. So there's internal, external, and then external, there's retained, and there's contingency. And Brianna, you have a lot more experience in this space. Did I miss anything there? Did I misconstrue? Are there other flavors of recruiters?
I think the only thing I'd want to add is that, especially in the tech sector, and again, that's just where my experience lies. I would say once someone gets up to like 30 to 50 people, they even bring an internal recruiter in at this point.
Okay.
Not everybody, but I definitely want
Sure.
them to know, like, there's tons of small companies that have recruiters. But the bottom line is every company uses recruiters, whether it's internal or external, and lots of companies use. I want to make sure they know that a recruiter's job, whether it's internal or external, is based off of getting hires. So that's what I want to stress, because I'm a recruiter. So I see, oh, they're ghosting me. It's like, we don't, first of all, candidates ghost us all the time. We don't talk about it. But our job is literally to get these roles filled. And if we can't get these roles filled, guess what? We're in trouble. Or we don't get paid. If it's contingency, we don't get paid. Even if it's a retainer, we still technically get paid, but trust me, we're not going to get paid again if we don't fill that role. And then now we have a bad reputation. There's just so many things, like our world will stop if we don't fill these roles. So we want to network with you. We want for you to get the job, and lots of things are out of our control.
Yeah, and I've always been mostly been the hiring manager. Sometimes I stepped in and helped out on the recruiting side when a recruiter's been on maternity leave. But I generally say a recruiter is like the gatekeeper, and the hiring manager is generally the decision maker of the hire. Do you think that's like a fair analogy?
I actually always use that we're the bouncer to the nightclub.
Yeah.
Even though I'm almost 40, I'm still the bouncer at the nightclub.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I know we're going to get into more of a perspective, so I'll let that sit there. But I think it's great to really talk about the different types of recruiters. And there's also, every single position has different recruiters. And I would say typically there's either a tech recruiter, or they just are called recruiters or corporate recruiters. In my opinion, I gave them a better name, and they're Renaissance recruiters to me, because that sounds cool. But yeah, so there's tech, which is just more of like software stuff. And then there is like go-to-market recruiters, product recruiters, design recruiters. So I think that when you're trying to network with all the different recruiters, if I were you, I would put in what kind of team you're trying to get on, because you can get really nitty-gritty. And there are recruiters, like, we're taught to niche down. Like, we're taught to have a specialty for sure. And then there's some recruiters who are like, oh no, I can do absolutely everything. And like, maybe they can, but they're at least going to put on their LinkedIn what their at least 3 specialties are. And I think those are the recruiters you really want to come into contact with. And then to Alan, your point about internal recruiters, absolutely network with them as well. That's who's also going to push your resume forward. You need internal recruiters and external recruiters at your disposal.
Tell us about that perspective. I feel like this is going to go right into this.
I was trying to hold my tongue. I'm like, I know we're talking about perspective. I'm going to get there. So I think about like the hiring manager meetings that I have. I'm thinking of one in particular, and we're just like not filling this role. It's like I'm talking to so many different candidates. The candidates are frustrated. Why does the hiring manager not want to talk to me? Why am I not getting the offer? There's all these like what's going on both sides. And so for a recruiter, it's like, like I need to just get this filled. It's almost like you almost start taking things personally, like why can't I get it filled? So the question to the hiring managers are always, what 3 questions can I ask that will be a good representation of a candidate, knowing that, hey, this is what we need, right? Before I even put them in front of you, these are the 3 questions I have. So when I think about my perspective, I had the other day, I asked an engineer, I said, hey, here's the 3 questions I need answers to before I can put you in front of the hiring manager. His response to me was, I just need to get the interview as soon as possible, like read my resume. I was like, breathe. Okay. So I said, look, I didn't make these questions. Okay. Like I didn't make these questions. The hiring manager is asking me these questions. He will literally not look at your resume unless I have these 3 questions. So it's kind of like, do you think the hiring manager is just going to look at the resume because I said so? I mean, sometimes my relationships are that strong where they don't even care about the intake. They just are like, hey, you vetted this person, you like them, great. Like, let's put them through. And that's something that I want people to realize is that recruiters have very strong relationships most of the time with hiring managers. Again, that's our job to do, because if we don't understand the hiring manager, we can't hire for them. We're not just hiring a piece of paper. So when you're talking to them, like your recruiter will go to bat for you all day long if you go to bat for them. So for example, like that guy, I'm not going to bat for, right?
Right. I don't think he went to the hiring manager.
No, it's like, no. Because it's like the hiring manager will ask us, does this person fit in with our culture, misuse, values? And can I say with a straight face that this person does? No, the person gave me attitude. So it's like, probably not. Like I can see that they're spraying and praying and they don't really care, nor do they care about me as a human being. So I definitely think that that's something from my point of view of like, look, we're here to help you. I'm not here to make it difficult. If I didn't have to ask you any questions, great. Like I'm happy about that, right? But the point is like you want to actually have your new home, right? We spend most of our time at our job, even more than at home.
Yeah. And Brianna, which sort of companies do you typically recruit for? So you recruit in the tech space. I'm also coming from a perspective from someone that's hired at large companies. Some of the companies like Google rarely uses external headhunters. Salesforce rarely did. Facebook, like Amazon does more often on the big tech side. But yeah. What sort of companies are you recruiting for so people have a perspective of that?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm recruiting more for like seed funded to like Series B companies, more venture capital, more of like in San Francisco perspectives. Yep. And so what's interesting about that is I'm extremely close to the hiring team. Like that, and it's like if they're not growing, they're dying. So I think that with smaller companies it's even more important to be involved with a recruiter because they'll roundtable sometimes, even though I don't work for them, like I work with them, they'll ask my perspective. They'll ask, what did you think? Because, hey, it's between Bob and Sally in the initial call. Who do you like better? And I'm like, and so it gets a little hairy on that side, but we have a lot of power. And I don't think people realize that. I think they treat us as paper pushers. Yeah. So I really want to make sure that, like, again, with the whole front of the line thing, it's like we can bypass. So all of the applicants, you see a job that has 500,000 applicants, which is what's happening right now, right? It's frustrating. We bypass that entire line. And it goes straight to the hiring manager. And every single week we have a sync with them. We say, hey, here's my top 3 favorites. Here's why they're my favorites. Because what people also don't realize is how time consuming it is to hire just one role. Super time consuming. And so we're trying to like cut that time down as much as possible. Same with even technology now. It's like we're trying to use everything we can in order to make a candidate's life easier and better. And that's what we're trying really hard to do. And so if you do that on the other side, we will completely reward you for that stuff, because like, wow, this person's really easy. I want to see them get hired. Whereas like you have someone, give you attitude and you're like, I don't know, you're nervous. Actually, what I want to mention is you said contingency firms, even retained actually, have a guarantee period. And typically it is 90 days. So I'm not going to, especially if I have choices, I'm not going to place someone with a company that I don't think their attitude is going to last them 90 days because it doesn't help me. It doesn't help the company. A bad hire costs a lot of money on every side.
Yeah.
So that's like super important to mind your P's and Q's, right?
Yeah, no, extremely important. Like the recruiter has a huge amount of influence. So I'll go through this fairly quickly and just ask Brianna to explain if I'm wrong. KPIs, the key performance indicators that recruiters typically have, are speed to hire, volume of hire, and potentially budget. Like, are they hiring someone within a budget? The incentives are for internal recruiters. They are usually getting paid a salary plus some X% of bonus. So like at Google as a recruiter, maybe you're making like 150,000 and you're in like a 15% bonus. So you get $22,000 bonus. You can go up or down if you do some extra stuff, but you basically get a salary plus bonus. So if you are doing your hiring the roles that you need to hire within the speed and not pissing anyone off internally, you're good. External recruiters, the KPIs are pretty similar, but the incentives are greater for contingency because you only get paid if you get the butt in the seat. And a lot of recruiters and companies call it BIS, butts in seat. And they call
I've never
headcount.
heard that.
That's what we called it at Google and Salesforce. BIS. It was in the spreadsheet. And we had HC, headcount. So heads and butts. That's all. Like people were like we didn't care about the body. It was all the head and the butt. So the incentives for contingency is you only get paid for what you kill. So you only eat what you kill. So if you get the person in the seat and they stay there for 90 days, if there's a clawback, then you get paid. For retainer, you get paid a monthly thing, and then you get a bigger bump once a person's in the role and they're there for 90 days. Did I miss any KPIs there or incentives there, Brianna?
I mean, nitty gritty is like, they have a lot more KPIs than that. It even goes to like response rate, how many resumes a week you're sending, what's the pass through rate, and then now something I guess we didn't quite talk about in the beginning is there's also a sourcer path and a recruiter path.
Yeah.
So that's something just to kind of know, and that sourcers, like, we're just looking for the offer, the recruiter's trying to close the offer. So it's kind of interesting the bigger the company is. So you might talk to a couple of different recruiters, but that's pretty much the nuts and bolts.
Okay. So when's the last time you saw a recruiter get measured on the candidate experience?
Actually, that's more of a thing now. I think it's more in tech, in my opinion, especially like with the DEI. So something else we didn't talk about is the diversity outreach numbers. And those are completely separate as well, depending on the team size and essentially sometimes who they're funded by.
Yeah.
So that's its own separate thing.
So they track those metrics, but I never found that those metrics really mattered on someone's bonus rate, on someone's promotion ability. And if you're a recruiter, contingency or retained, as long as you get a good quality hire, the company is not really going to care how you treated the candidates. Like they don't want you to like be so bad that people are posting stuff on TikTok about how bad the experience was, but they're not asking, oh, how did our rejected candidates feel about their experience?
So that is happening more and more with candidate surveys and stuff like that. And that is going into people's pips and bonus chats. They're trying to do better. But I think at the end of the day, recruiters are paid off of results. So yeah. I think that that's true. But I know a couple of friends that like if they get a bad Glassdoor review, then it goes against their bonus. So companies are starting to pay more attention to it, but you're right. It's results. Like for sure, like contingency, results.
Yeah. And the point is sharing that for the folks out there that are candidates, not recruiters. When you are upset about getting ghosted or like not followed up with or poor candidate experience, realize like there's likely no intent there. Recruiters' jobs are very tough. And like Brianna said, there's ghosting and lack of follow-up on both sides of the equation. But if they're not measured for that, they're not going to really focus on that.
And that's sad. And that's why we're putting tech through even just going through resumes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, can you imagine like there's 1,000 applicants, how long it takes that recruiter to look at your resume, first of all, and then how long they're actually paying attention to it. So it's like, 15 seconds they're looking at resumes. So that's why your resume, I know it's not about this, but it has to really scream why you. Really like straight to the point why you, because there's also like fatigue of looking at resumes. And I know that sometimes companies care more about speed than they do quality when it comes to this, which is really sad. That's its own separate thing, right? But like if I'm looking at resumes for 30 minutes at a time, you better bet like at minute 25, I'm like, who even knows what happened the last 5 minutes of it, So it's like, it's not good. It's not a good system. That's why networking, reach out to us. I don't care if you applied. I mean, first of all, that's another thing. Like I don't totally believe in applying, but like network with us. Tell us why hey, you know what? My resume has been sitting in there. I don't want to be a bug. I'm sure you're getting so many messages, but here's why I'm really great, or here's why I really want to work there. Lots of times the recruiter will do what they can.
Yeah.
So I think that's important to note.
Cool.
Yeah. One more quick.
Okay.
There we go.
Just quick guide and mission.
Yeah. Love us. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, like, again, just be straight to the point. I think we started it off with the transparency of it. What do you need? What do you want? How can you help them? This is not a what can they do for you today? This is a what can they do for you throughout your entire career and journey. I think that's what's really important.
Yes. Real quick, what is your number one takeaway for anybody that's here today? If they remember nothing else, what would your number one takeaway be?
Who goes first?
Alan, go first.
Yeah, I was like,
Okay.
Who are you asking?
That recruiters can be your friend. I probably should have done a little bit more reaching out to recruiters as well, and something that I will reevaluate, especially when I was looking for startups and like hot startups and organizations like that, and focusing on my customer success and operations. I should have gotten a recruiter rather than land at a pretty crappy startup that I did on my, like I found back in 2019.
For me, you got to find the recruiter in your niche for what you're doing, like going back to what Alan just said, but have an open mind, because recruiters are going to give you opportunities you don't even know existed. Like there's no way you could have found them on your own, and be open to it and talk through it. Let's be honest. We're going to be honest with you, be honest with me. We're going to go back and forth. If you want to go faster in the job search, let's go faster. You have 3 offers. Let's talk about those offers. It's like, that's what really helps us and then helps you in the long run, right?
Yes, we do have questions. Very quickly, you can either grab this QR code, or when this event is over, Alexis is going to put clickable links in the comments so you can grab stuff there, because we've had a really bad experience just putting links in the comments otherwise. And also, same thing with our feedback form. If you give us feedback, you can enter to win one of our mini courses that are $100 value. They're awesome. We're going to be off for a couple weeks. And here is our event page. We have our free webinar about how to get a job in any economy next week. And we'll be back here in 2 weeks talking about startups versus corporate. And Brianna, real quick, tell us about your entrepreneurial potential link.
Yeah, so I would say after COVID, for sure, the entrepreneurial spirit was like super strong, and it's exciting, and it's getting stronger, and even more women are becoming entrepreneurs. So I coach people in that journey, but I will say this: whenever you're thinking about it, you're almost there. What you're going to download is just asking you really deep questions to see, like, are you in it for the right reasons? Are you actually ready? Because I guess when it comes to having kids, are you really ready? But no one's ever ready. But this will at least help, like, get you excited about it. Understand, do you want to go down this route? Because it's not an easy one, but it is a fun one, and you have to be ready. So the potential is there in everyone if you want it. And so I came up with that little questionnaire to, get you excited and be realistic.
Awesome. We have a few questions. Alan, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm going to do these rapid, and I'll answer, or I'll punt the hard ones to you, Brianna. I'll take the easy one.
Thanks.
Okay. Thoughts and recommendations for this person. He's a white heterosexual male and hyper honest. So historically, he would check the boxes when applying for jobs. Recently, he was advised to select decline to answer so that he won't get screened out for DEI reasons. Thoughts. So here's the deal. The boxes that you're checking go into a government database. Nobody that's evaluating you sees that. However, someone that is looking at you and interviewing you, they can choose to use whatever bias that they have. It's not right, it's not legal, but it happens. So check the box if you want to give it to the government, but people are still going to have their perspective on you based on what you look like. Brianna, anything that I missed there?
That's all true. Sad and true.
This one's for you, Brianna. This is a hard one. No, this one is just dedicated to you, or aimed to you. Do you have a preference for connection requests from people you don't know who want to work at your org, or LinkedIn email messages? Oh, so do you have a preference for LinkedIn messages or email? Do you have any preference of how people reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I look at anything, but I would say LinkedIn is super simple. So, like, whenever you're sending a connection request, put a little note, put a little why, essentially, why are we connecting? Then, what's great about that is not only do I see it and I know why I'm connecting with you, but then also, let's just say I'm like just accepting connection requests. It then goes into my inbox and it will remind me. So, yeah, for sure. I think LinkedIn connections with the message is the best.
And also note that recruiters will be on LinkedIn. Not all hiring managers will be on LinkedIn. So
Sure.
their email might be more effective. Is there an ideal length for a resume? Here's my rule. Less than 10 years of experience, definitely 1 page. If you have more than 10 years of experience, you can go up to 2 pages, never over 2 pages. Brianna, what's your perspective?
I was going to say never over 3, but to be honest, I'm not even looking at the 3rd page. Maybe I'm honestly not even looking past 2 companies. I'll probably see like objective, what do you do? First company, if I'm like not like sold by the first company, I'm going to the second company, but I'll most likely never go to the 3rd.
Yeah. The 3rd, yeah, cool. With so many people reaching out to recruiters, how does a candidate stand out? What makes them catch the recruiter's eye? I'll hand that to you, Brianna, as a recruiter.
Ooh, yeah, fun. It's the why you. Or it can be something funny. So something funny, it's just refreshing. Or like they grab something on your profile. So I have on there like world's best wing woman, so anytime someone like puts that on there, I'm like, oh, good, they were paying attention. Let's see. I love that stuff. But never, I'm just going to say it again. Don't just send your resume and expect us to like have the magic powers, right? Just why are you contacting us? What can I do for you?
Cool. Next one. Do you think it's easier or harder being an internal or external recruiter?
Oh, this is such a debate. It's controversial. It's a webinar. External. Hands down.
It's easier. I think it's harder.
It's much harder to be an external recruiter.
So it's harder to be external.
Absolutely.
Yeah. More lucrative though if you're good.
Of course. Yeah. So like I always say, and again, I get in trouble for this, but I'm just going to say it, that the people that couldn't hack it in external go internal.
Yep. I agree. Or if they just want a cush lifestyle and anyway, we can go off on that.
Yeah.
Okay, last one. As a recruiter, what kinds of follow-up thank you note do you appreciate the most? And then I'll answer this from a hiring manager's perspective, but I'd love it from your perspective.
Honestly, just being a recruiter sometimes is the most thankless job in the universe because we often get forgotten, right? They're always like, hey, can you send this thank you note to the hiring manager? I'm like, what about me? But I would say, honestly, anything. If I get a 1 sentence, I'm pretty stoked. Like, hey, thanks so much for setting this up. And I'm like, having a great day.
Even as a hiring manager, just a simple thank you is nice.
Nice meeting you. Mm-hmm.
I would say I've interviewed probably 2,000 people in my career. And if I've gotten a thank you note from 10% of them, I would be surprised if it's that high.
Agreed.
And
it goes a long way.
And it's almost always women, not to be gender related, but I've noticed that it was almost always women. I know we're not having our next ABL because next week we are having our talk where I'll be talking about how to get a job in any economy, but especially this very difficult and challenging economy. And I think you got to put the next slide on, Katie, so that people can join that one.
Yes, that's our event page. It has all our upcoming events on it. And thank you all for sticking around despite our early technical difficulties. Brianna, you've been amazing. Thank you so much. And I know that Alan's going to close it out. I hope you're ready.
I'm ready. First, I want to thank Brianna. Second, I want to thank Katie. Third, I want to thank Alexis, who's in the background here, and everybody who's made this happen. And thank you for the 17 people that are still here. First, Brianna's 3 words.
Just 3?
Just 3. That's all you get.
3. However many words you want. What are your last words?
Recruiters are friends.
Recruiters are friends. And I shall leave you with own your career.